Yeah. So look, you got BPTV, you got Rob,
Was that?
and I am John. All right, y'all. This is going to be the conclusion of the episode with Dr. Kimberly Ellis. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Us going through the process was enlightening. She dropped a lot of good tidbits,
Knowledge.
on top of gems, and
So much information. I felt like I gained a college credit, and you're gonna hear me probably state that but hey, just stay tuned. Here it is.
today we can have a very distinguished guest to help celebrate the centennial of the Women's Right to Vote of 1920 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Dr. Kimberly Ellis. Dr. Kimberly Ellis, how you doing?
Finding you, John. Finding you, Robert. Nice
What
to
up,
be.
Doc? Dr. Kim? You in right now? You reside in Florida, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I got to know, what is the voting problems going on in Florida? Do we have to worry about that this year?
So Florida is definitely an interesting state. And then if you look at maps following elections in the state of Florida, most of the blue you will see will be centered around Tallahassee, maybe Jacksonville, Orlando, then the Miami, Broward, the Tri-County area in South Florida, and maybe a little pocket, the western part of the state near Panama City. And then for the most part, the remainder of the state is solid red. Okay, so it's a very interesting state when you start to think about it from a political perspective and the different pockets, if you will, that exist within the state.
So what's the problem with counting the ballots?
Well, John, I don't know if some of it could be, well, some of it during some elections has been the fact of equipment malfunction. Then some of it, quite honestly, could be the fact that some individuals who are voting may not properly understand, the process. Because in South Florida, and especially in your urban areas, we have individuals that still, speak their native tongue. Asian population. So the areas that I go to in South Florida, for example, where all of the signage in the stores, the majority of the people that I encounter in the retail establishments may be speaking Spanish or maybe speaking Creole, depending upon where they migrated from. So then there could be, some issues with properly understanding the process when you're doing when you're filling out your ballots.
So it's more so a language barrier, and like you said, with the improper equipment. So how can we rectify that problem so we can't use that as an excuse for the November 3rd election?
Well, one thing that they're trying to do, and it's happening all over the U.S. for that matter, is encouraging more mail-in ballots. So if the ballot's longer, then that gives you more time to process.
Right. Postal Service is pretty good at predicting around about time they're going to get their packages. That's why every year for Christmas, they say, if you want your package to get here around these dates, mail it at this time.
Right.
These dates, mail it at this time. This is your suspense date. If you don't do it by this date, 9 times out of 10, you won't get it for Christmas.
Right.
But you saying mail-in ballots, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And keep in mind that local residents also have like a vote by mail option. So we're not just talking about people who are living out of state and have to have their ballots received in the county in which they're registered to vote. But we're
The
also
absentees. Yeah.
the absentee, but we're also talking about the fact that local residents have a choice. So you don't have to go to the physical poll. You can request that your ballot be mailed to you. And then you could do one of two things. You could either place it in the regular mail, or there is a procedure in place where you can like drive by and take it to various locations that the county has designated where you can return the ballot.
But
Okay.
but again, it has to be a cutoff time, though, right?
Oh, yeah,
Right. I mean,
definitely.
just suspect.
Yeah.
So that makes sense why Trump tweeted about the U.S. mail, and it's going to be a problem since they're trying to get more people to vote by mail. So
Yes.
it makes sense for him to corrupt it.
What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say it's like he's putting it. It's I'm almost like if you keep saying something, it manifests itself.
He's trying to make it into an obstacle when he's trying to, yeah, like he's saying, like he's trying to put it out there to say, hey, the mail system broke. You know, your vote might not count. You might not get it in there in time. You know, and then you have, let's delay it to after this pandemic. Instead of trying to figure out how to fix the problem, he want to say it's broke.
Right.
That's possible. That's possible. But then, those who are enlightened would say, well, I'm not going to just take the easy route and put it in the mail. I want to make sure that my vote gets counted. So then I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go and drive it to the designated place to make sure it gets received.
Speaking of that, Dr. Ellis, let me say this real quick. We are BPTV. We are a subsidiary of Be Prepared to Vote. And Be Prepared to Vote is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, which means that we're not trying to tell you who to vote for. We're not trying to tell you what to vote for. All we're trying to do is encourage you to participate in the democracy. So, with that being said, I like where you was going there, Dr. Ellis, because they've been throwing out this term called "make a plan for your household" for November 3rd. Do you have a plan?
Well, my household consists of one person. So I'm going to
What's your plan, Doc? What's your plan?
My plan is to get my ballot mailed to me in advance.
Okay.
I will complete the ballot, and then I will drive it to the designated location to drop it off. And if they have the service available, will they give you some sort of receipt to verify?
That's what I was going to ask. So is it scanned in? So is it scanned in once you drop it, or how do you know it was?
I have no knowledge. I haven't done it before. And to be quite honest, I haven't researched it to see all of the details associated therein. That's why I say if the option is available, I'll make sure I get some sort of receipt to verify. But I don't know if it's just going to be like a drop box, or there'll be a physical person that that would have protective wear on, gloves, mask, all of that you will hand it to, or if it's just going to be like a box or a bin that you put it into, or what.
So you're a professor where?
At Florida Atlantic University. Okay.
So on your campus, have you participated, or what do you see as far as the campus pushing voting registration? Do they set up anything for voting times, or like a vote?
I've noticed recently that we will be having a polling station on campus. They had one because we had some preliminary elections that took place earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw signs when I had gone on campus about polling stations. And I know in November there will be polling stations set up on campus as well for the people, for definitely, I'm sure, students as well as potential other people within the geographic area.
Let me ask this though, Doc. You know, August is an especially important month regarding the women's suffrage. August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution granted American women the right to vote. Subsequently, almost 55 years later, August 6, 1965, President Johnson signed into legislation the Voting Rights Act. I guess my question to you is, have you ever heard of Ida B. Wells?
Yes, I've heard of Ida B. Wells. I've heard also of several other women during that time period that were actively involved in the voters' rights movement and the women's suffrage movement. Others would be Susan B. Anthony, who was born to a Quaker family in the Massachusetts area, like in the mid 1800s. And she actually was like the first female to be put on a U.S. coin.
Yeah, I used to collect those coins.
On the $1 coin, like in 1979. And she was like one of the most prominent women involved in the suffrage movement. And her era was like the late 1800s, you know, that time period, because she actually passed before the 1920 amendment. And she's an interesting character because I researched her recently in preparation for our conversation. And she was actually involved in the movement to abolish slavery as well. Because I read her father was actually friends with Frederick Douglass. And Anthony actually housed some of the meetings of individuals that were engaged in planning and different rallies, if you will, against slavery at that time. And as a teenager, she was involved in petitions against slavery. And then also, some people may be familiar also with Mary McLeod Bethune, who founded an all-girls academy, who then merged with an all-boys academy to form Bethune-Cookman College, HBCU in Florida, in the Florida area. So Mary McLeod Bethune was also, you know, like counterparts and contemporaries with Ida B. Wells in terms of fighting for the right to vote as well as women's rights. And Mary McLeod Bethune is also interesting because she made the transition, or I should say in parallel to being an activist, she also was a government official because she served under Franklin Delano Roosevelt as like a director of what was then called like Negro Youth Development. Yeah, Mary McLeod Bethune, she was born in South Carolina to parents who had been slaves.
Okay.
Yes, and also you may have seen Fannie Lou Hamer, who was born in the Mississippi Delta, and she came around like more in the 50s and 60s because she was involved in some of the summer freedom ride movements. You know how when some of the college students would go down south and they would go door to door trying to register people to vote? This was like around the same time that the civil rights movement and Martin
With John Lewis and
John Lewis and that era. So Fannie Lou Hamer was more in that era, working along with John Lewis, Martin Luther King Jr., and some of those individuals to get people registered.
Oh, Dr. Ellis, I know you to be a very family-oriented person. So when it comes to voting, what would you tell your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your aunts, uncles, people that you know that's not voting? How would you encourage them or even give them tips on to go vote?
Well, actually, that's one of the things that inspires me to stay active politically because, and especially in '08 and 2012, to see my younger siblings, first cousins and things, and to see them send pictures or make posts being at the polls at 6 in the morning before they went to work and things, it brought a smile. It brought a smile to my face.
Trend. A
Those,
trend.
yeah, but for those who don't, I mean, it's to me, a lot of it is some of the history that we were just talking about and having to impress upon younger people that some of our forefathers sacrificed. Some of them were beaten, bruised. Some of them were
And fought
jailed,
for. Yeah.
for us to have this right. So
Lost a lot.
we owe it to our ancestors to exercise this right that we have. And also, though the times and the context was a little different, I found an interesting quote that W.E.B. Du Bois made. And of course, this was, in a different point in time and a different era. But he was basically talking about the fact that if we don't vote, then we almost put ourselves, here is the quote, the power of the ballot we need in sheer defense, else what shall save us from a second slavery? And, it's like, we really we owe it to our ancestors and we owe it to ourselves to continue to be actively involved in the process. And, we can't complain if we're not on the playing field.
I say that all the time. I've never been one to want to ride the bench. I've always asked coach to put me in the game. You told me some stuff I didn't know. I like that, and I feel like if I didn't know it, other people didn't know it.
I know I didn't know.
I read a lot.
Time to be prepared. This is my profession. So,
listen.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, and anytime you want to come back on, you got something on your mind you want to talk about, you're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kimberly Ellis.
You might get to have to analyze what's going on in Florida again.
This is a long one, man.
Oh, I know it is.
I ain't lying to you.
Because when she started talking, I was like, man, that's good. That's some good information.
That's it, man. I just let it go. That was like.
Man, that's a walking encyclopedia, man.
I didn't know. That's why
But I told you she was going to bring it, though.
Because that was sad. I swear.
Oh, you want to bring that up?